It was 1965 and Julie Andrews was hot, hot, hot. Mary Poppins had come out the year before, and I was deeply into umbrellas and carpetbags. I was 4. Then, the following summer, my mom said we were all going to see something called The Sound of Music. My older cousins were visiting from Sioux Falls, and we had to get tickets in advance and drive forever to the huge Cooper Theater in St. Louis Park. It was that important. We loved it. Afterwards, we reenacted the story on the hill in our backyard in Eastside St. Paul. I was Kurt. Our family bought the soundtrack, a fact that I proudly announced to Mrs. Shannon, my kindergarten teacher at Battle Creek Elementary School, when the subject naturally turned to The Sound of Music. "Really, Craig?" she asked. "Do you think I could borrow it?" Teacher wanted to borrow my Sound of Music record. The honor! I got permission from my mom and presented the album to Mrs. Shannon. Her eyes shone. Well, whose wouldn't? "Thank you so much, Craig. I'll really enjoy listening to this." I beamed. But days went by. Mrs. Shannon didn't say anything. Weeks passed, and she didn't bring the record back. Anxiety and depression overtook my life. My mother somehow was able to remain calm. "Don't worry, Craig. We have another Sound of Music record." Another? Why was I not told about this? My mom handed me something called the original Broadway cast. No. That lady was too old. The kids were all wrong. She didn't sing really, really high at the end of Do, Re, Mi, so honestly, what was the point? There were songs that weren't even in the movie at all. Who cares what the stupid Baroness wants to sing about? And where was I've Got Confidence? My mother sighed and told me I would just have to ask Mrs. Shannon for the record back. Well, part of growing up is having to do hard things. So remembering the Mother Abbess' advice to climb every mountain and forge every stream, at kindergarten the next day I whispered, "Mrs. Shannon, may I have my Sound of Music record back?" "Oh, Craig, I'm so sorry. I forgot. I gave it to the other kindergarten teacher so she could listen to it." Thankfully, Mrs. Shannon recognized a kid in free fall. "Don't worry, Craig. It's all right. I'll tell her today that she needs to bring it back, and I'll make sure you get your record right away." I started breathing again, and Mrs. Shannon was as good as her word. Within a day or two, I was back home listening to the only correct record of The Sound of Music once more. Later, by myself, I put on one of my mom's aprons, pinned a striped washcloth to my t-shirt, went out to the hill, and I twirled. Epilogue. 10 years later, 1975, our family was living in Antwerp, Belgium because of my dad's job. One Saturday, a posse of us, I'm afraid somewhat obnoxious, 9th and 10th grade Americans living abroad, went downtown to wander about, sneer, and go see a movie. We were considering The Exorcist when we turned a corner, and there was a huge sign with Julie Andrews skipping through the air, swinging that guitar case and carpetbag, while 7 Von Trapps followed her over the hillside and Christopher Plummer glared from the sidelines. The Sound of Music had just been re-released in Europe. Almost as one, we sighed, "Ah, you guys, let's go see that." We loved it. Of course, this was before DVDs and VHS, and since we had all been living abroad, we didn't even get the annual TV broadcast. We didn't know how deprived our lives had been. The film over, we stumbled out onto the sidewalk, beaming stupidly. Our parents are going to be so happy when we tell them we went to go see The Sound of Music.